Of course, literally as soon as I start, someone calls me. All right. And my computer just died. I love that. Oh my gosh. I'll be right back. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. So today, as you can tell by the title, I am restarting my Missing Murdered Indigenous Women series. And I figured what better way to start than with Olivia Lone Bear. Just this story in general, as soon as I heard what happened, I was immediately just like, she was murdered. Like, I don't understand why it would be anything else. So we're gonna go through this story. I'm going to tell you guys what happened to her, and you guys can make your own theories, conclusions. I think it's pretty obvious just based on the facts of what happened to her, but sadly nothing has been done yet. No one's been held responsible for this. Sorry. No one's been held responsible for this, and that's why it's really important that we get this out and we spread the word. And just making these videos, maybe someone saw something, someone lives in the area, you never know. I still have hope that something will be done, because I don't believe any of these girls should just get swept under the rug like nothing happened. So let's just get started. So Olivia Lone Bear was 32 years old. She was 5'6" and 130 pounds. She grew up in Newtown, North Dakota. This was her hometown. She went off to school, but she would always come back to her hometown. That's where all of her family lived. That's where she was born and raised. That's where her tribe was. So she would always come back to North Dakota. Olivia Lone Bear always put her family first, considering she had 5 kids. She had a lot to do, a lot to take care of. She always made sure her kids were ready for school, got them dressed. I have 1 kid and he is a handful. I could not imagine having 5 kids. She was living with her dad, so I'm assuming that she was a single mom of 5 kids. She was very sociable. She was very likable. She liked to go out and have fun, but obviously her family came first. She always made sure that they were her top priority, and she would make time for friends when she could, but obviously there isn't a lot of time for that, especially with 5 little ones running around. That's what also makes this story so heartbreaking. That's 5 kids that lost their mom. So what really raised red flags in this case is on October 26th, 2017, her oldest brother Malachi was posting on Facebook asking if anyone had seen Olivia, like basically just putting a feeler out for there if anyone seen her, if anyone was with her, and he got no response. So her older brother thought this was so strange because Malachi and Olivia had a very good relationship. They were always in communication with each other. He always knew what was going on and basically her whereabouts and everything. So the fact that Malachi was posting on Facebook and had no idea where Olivia was and hadn't spoken to her in a couple of days, it definitely gave them a very uneasy feeling, especially because she would never go anywhere without telling them her whereabouts or when she was going to be home. She had 5 kids to take care of. It's not like she would just go out and not tell them what she was doing or what her plans were. So Olivia was last seen in Old Town, North Dakota, driving her friend's 2011 Chevy Silverado. I guess she was borrowing the truck from a friend, and that was the last time anyone had seen her. A huge team of law enforcement agencies came together to try to search for her. They were the Bureau of Criminal Investigations, or BCI, Tribal PD, Bureau of Indian Affairs, Ward County, Williams County, and North Dakota Fish and Game. Also, help from family members and other people in the tribe came together to try to figure out what had happened. When you first hear all these different agencies coming together, you obviously are relieved because most of the time not that much is being done. And at first glance you may look at this and say, oh wow, like so many different agencies wanted to help her and this is so good and they're gonna find answers and yada yada yada. Yeah, no. Sometimes when too many different agencies come together to try to do the same case or to try to solve the same case, especially when it comes to tribal members or someone in a tribe that goes missing and police and FBI get involved, basically they are just putting off, like basically playing hot potato with this case and this girl's life of who's gonna do what, who's gonna search for her, what agency is gonna take care of it. Like, they're basically just pushing it off to each agency, like, no, you take care of it, it's your responsibility, no, you take care of it, because we don't have jurisdiction. It's basically just a hot potato game of some missing girl's life. It was not something that they were all coming together and working together to solve it as a collective. It was more pushing the blame on who's responsible for it, basically. And so that was really, really frustrating for the family, because Olivia lived very close to Lake Sacagawea, which is a huge lake in North Dakota. I believe her family lived about a half mile from this lake. And obviously the family and everyone wanted to search the lake. But getting an agency to, they had the boats, they had everything, they had sonar, they had what they needed to search the lake, but they just didn't want to use their resources to do it. It was multiple agencies that had the ability to, but sadly they did not. This goes back to the broken system of tribal agencies not being able to prosecute murder or kidnapping or basically any felonies against any non-natives. There's like legal barriers that prevent them from prosecuting these things or being able to even really investigate them to the best of their ability, just because they do not have jurisdiction. So they basically can't try any non-natives except in a way that's acceptable by Congress. So they have to jump through all these loopholes, prove over and over again, and Congress has to approve it for them to even be able to do anything. So it's basically like just a bunch of BS. So when stuff like this happens and a Native woman, a mother of 5, goes missing, the Bureau of Indian Affairs or all of the Native American agencies that are trying to help, they basically have to jump through all these loopholes and try to get the federal government or local PD to help them, because they don't have jurisdiction over this. And it's their people that are going missing and ending up murdered, and they can't do anything about it. Native American women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than the national average. Just let that sink in for a second. Native American women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than the national average. And Native American women are 4 times more likely to be sexually assaulted in their lifetime than the national average. Why is that? 84% of Native American women are expected to experience violence according to the federal government. 84%. So basically 16% is lucky if they never experience violence in their life at all. That's so small. It's honestly disgusting. And the fact that this is according to the federal government, which means that they're aware that this stuff is going on and they're aware that this is happening, and yet there aren't more things put in place to try to prevent this or protect them, just mind blows me. This one I did not know, but while researching this case, I found out, and I was shocked, that Native girls go missing particularly in places where they are doing oil extraction. So by oil fields, oil rigs, refineries, that type of thing. It's more common for them to go missing around those areas, and most of the time those are very close to reservations or in very rural areas. And it just so happened that she went missing by the major access point of the Dakota pipeline. So Lisa Yellowbird Chase, she worked in the oil field actually, and she is also Native American, and she really wanted to get involved in finding missing Native women and men. So she dedicated a lot of her time to trying to crack these cases, trying to solve these cases, trying to get involved in her community, doing missing murdered Indigenous women's marches and walks, and just trying to help out as much as she could. So when she found out about this case, she kind of came in very headstrong for the family, and they actually ended up having a falling out because the family just thought that she was just coming in, trying to be the hero, trying to solve the case, trying to make it all about her, and they ended up having a falling out. So the biggest problem in this case, and what was so overwhelming for the family and people that were coming to help, was that this reservation where she went missing was just shy of 1 million acres. just shy of 1 million acres. That just seems like a needle in a haystack when you're trying to find a missing person. And that only covers the reservation. The reservation itself is just shy of 1 million acres. So they really needed as much help as they could get for this. So despite having no blessing from the family, no reason to do this, she went back to Lake Sacagawea in July 2018 to look for Olivia with boats and sonar, and she ultimately found her at the bottom of the lake in that 2011 Chevy Silverado in the passenger side, buckled in, half a mile from her home on the Fort Berthold Reservation. So she was so close to home, and what just automatically screamed murder to me was the fact that she was in the passenger side of the truck. She was buckled in the passenger seat, which means somebody was driving the car. Somebody drove the truck into the lake. Somebody did that and left her in there. If it was an accident, you would think that person would come forward and say, whatever happened, I got too drunk, I drove my truck off a bridge or into the lake, and there was still my friend inside and I couldn't get her out. Not just leave her at the bottom, decomposing at the bottom of a lake. Her cause of death was undetermined. The hard thing about this is that the family was pushing for a water search since November of 2017. And for some reason, the lead law enforcement was just pushing it off, pushing it off. They had the boats, they had the resources to do this, and they just kept pushing it out until it took someone who is not even friends with the family anymore to come in and find her. And her family doesn't even think that the BIA even made her case a priority, or basically any of the agencies really took it seriously or really felt like it was something that they needed to do or they needed to find her. It was just kind of brushed off and swept to the side. Even after countless searches, the family searched all the land. It was organizing searches and putting these things together and making sure that people were looking for her. And once they covered all the land, they were basically like, okay, we need to search the water. Like, there's this huge lake right here. Like, odds are she might be in there. Like, we have to search. And basically all the agencies were just not really making it a priority. Which is just horrible to know that she was down there half a mile from her house. She could have been found a lot sooner. This case, there isn't really much going on after. The police, if they are doing an investigation, are keeping it pretty tight-lipped, obviously, because they don't want to release that much information. But unsealed search warrants indicate that they have not ruled out murder or manslaughter. So that is really good news. And hopefully they are doing a thorough investigation. I feel like it wouldn't be that hard to find out whose truck this is, you know, interviewing people, who was she last seen with, yada yada yada. But again, I'm not a police officer, so I don't know what they're doing, but I just feel like obviously this is murder. Obviously someone needs to be held accountable, especially because she was in the passenger side of the truck. Like, that just makes no sense. Like, someone was driving that truck, you know? And just the fact that whoever it was is still out there is just really upsetting, especially because she had 5 kids. 5 kids don't know what happened to their mom. And I think for their closure, they definitely need somebody to be held responsible for this. But this was July 2018, so it's been about 2 years with no arrests. They haven't named anybody as a suspect. So hopefully this video and your guys' support and just keeping her name out there, keeping her story out there, can really push law enforcement to dig deeper and find answers. You know, there's so much power in social media, and just getting these cases out there and spreading the word is what's important to these people. I'm so tired of these cases, just their death being undetermined, or if it's undetermined, then that means that they don't really have to do anything. Like, I feel like if you look at this case, you can obviously tell that it is murder, that it's a homicide, that there needs to be an investigation, but you know, sometimes they don't want to do the work for it, or they don't think it's important, or whatever the case may be, or it didn't get enough media attention, so they just hope that it'll just disappear and people won't talk about it anymore. Like, there needs to be something done, especially with how high the national rates are for Native American women. Like, they really need to take action on every single one that ends up murdered or missing. Like, that's just how I look at it. Like, there's no more excuses, there's no more undetermined, there's no more, oh, she died of this or she died of that. Like, no, do your jobs and figure out what happened to them. Like, they are important, they are needed, and this constant just people getting away with it. I feel like the federal government limiting the tribal agencies to prosecute something like kidnapping or murder is just suspect in itself, considering how many Native girls go missing or get murdered. And then on top of that, when something does happen to them, they don't go in and take care of it or prosecute people that are responsible. It just kind of seems like they want them to get murdered and they want them to go missing, and they don't want their own people to be able to do anything about it. And then once it does happen, they're the only ones with jurisdiction over it, and they don't do their jobs. Like, it's just a failed system. It's an epidemic. It's heartbreaking. It's very frustrating, and it needs to be changed. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm excited to be back in the series. So yeah, keep her name out there, keep her face out there, and if you guys know anything, make sure that you call. I'm not sure if there's a reward for her, but I will leave everything in the description box down below. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one.